Hey guys, I got started a little early today. Um, just doing more wire wraps like I did the previous session. So I'm starting off with a triple wrap in a circular 8 format. But I haven't been doing a lot of tutorials lately, especially going live on YouTube. So I'm kind of playing catch up in a way. But thanks so much for joining me. If you didn't see this live, of course, you're able to watch it again once the video is posted on YouTube. So the pattern for this one is to wrap twice in a circle 8 form, going over and under continuously with the pattern. And again, this one I'm using 3 wires for, compared to the other one, which I only use 2. And I'm also using a larger wire, which is a 24 gauge, instead of the 30. As you can see, this is taking me a little bit longer because of the fact that the wire is a lot thicker. Let's open a chat. There we go. I forgot to open the chat when I started. Okay, so just continuing along. And our figure 8 wrap that we're doing. Again, I'm wrapping twice along each wire. And this is going to come out to be a pretty nice design. A lot of people do use this wrap, or this particular pattern, if you would, in creating a lot of their jewelry. So this one is actually fairly common. It's a matter of controlling your wires, not letting the wire control you. So we're starting off with this one here. As you can see, it's going up and down, like so. And what I'm going to do as I complete each set, which I'm going to be doing a set of 4 each. I'm going to be tightening the wires so you can see what we'll actually be doing. And the jewelry that I had made previously, I have not posted on my website. I've actually been quite lazy lately with my website. Not sure exactly why, but I just have been. I'll close these up a little bit. Make sure you've got a good design, bring in tightness. And if you don't have a wooden clamp to do this, which I would advise getting, I personally do not have one, and I wish I did because my hand is starting to cramp up already because of having to pull this wire so tight because of it being a 24 gauge. So you pick it. You can have either a wooden clamp to hold your wires in place for you, or you could buy a bottle of Tylenol, whichever you prefer. Unfortunately, today I'm going to be opting for the bottle of Tylenol. But let me grab a little clamp, which sometimes helps. Just a regular paper clamp. You can buy. Let's straighten this out a little bit. Now, as you're doing this, you want to pull the wires closer together. In order to keep your pattern going the way it's supposed to. So this pattern, again, very basic. Nothing very intricate about it, except for the final result is actually quite nice. So normally if I'm using a thinner wire, which I didn't want to do in this tutorial, I can do this a lot faster. But being that I'm trying to show excuse me, more of the wire during the tutorial, that's why I'm using such a thick wire. So you guys can see exactly what's going on as I'm doing it. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, or you can always send me a message through my contact page at spiritoftwilight.com. And let's talk about Spirit of Twilight, actually. A lot of people, as I may have mentioned, think that Spirit of Twilight came from the movie Twilight, and that is definitely incorrect. That's not something that I had intended to do. But Spirit of Twilight actually came from the idea of the time of day at twilight. We're getting there. Now, there's a bunch of different types of wraps that you can do that you can find in books that you're able to purchase at a local Michaels store or even online on Amazon. But I personally like to figure out my own or on my own a way of creating jewelry. And sometimes I actually get an idea from someone on YouTube. If I do, I try to give them the credit for it, most definitely. There we go. Now this is becoming a lot easier. Simply because the wire is warmed up. And that would be from my hands or body heat. Okay, so I did quite a bit of this. I'm going to start pinching it together more so it's more uniform, and I'm going to flatten these out. Clamp back on. I'm just going to get you a wrap. And this is, again, 3 strands of 18 gauge raw copper. And also 24 gauge raw copper. So tell me about your holiday. What are you planning on doing this holiday season for Christmas or Yule or whatever you celebrate or however you celebrate? We're looking forward to a night out, or I should say a day out for Christmas Day instead of doing the traditional meal that we usually do at the house. For the past 2 years, actually, it's been wonderful because giving me a break instead of cooking each and every year. To actually spend some time with friends and family at a restaurant. So, okay, I'm going to finish this one up very soon. And we usually don't celebrate Christmas its an entirety, especially the gift giving. And I know a lot of people are like, "Wow, well, we the means because we buy each other stuff all year round, and we're not children anymore." Far from it, actually. So this actually helps us not only save a little money during the holidays, but giving them more surprise when you're actually buying something and not expecting it for someone else. I think it makes more sense. Rather than on Christmas, you get a list, you have expectations, so on and so forth. So, yeah. But a lot of people do tend to buy my candles more than my jewelry because of how I create my candles. And again, I probably mentioned this before, but I should actually do a video on candles because my best friend from high school and his wife and family came down, and his wife was asking questions about making candles, and she thought it was simplistic. She thought you just threw some wax and some scent and a pot, and voila, you pour it into a container, and boom, you have a candle. And that's just not that simple. Anyone who makes handmade candles will tell you that it can be, but is usually not a simple task. So keep that in mind if you do want to start to make candles. It is a lengthy process. And you most definitely want to look up information, especially now that the Federal Drug Administration, FCC, I think it is, or FTC, now has advising regulations that you should follow based on making handmade candles or candles in general. All right, so I'm going to stop with this one. And this is what it looks like. And I'm just going to push these together, tighten them up later. But that's pretty much the weave as it is. I'm going to end this one here. There we go. That would be a nice addition for a pendant. I'm going to put that aside. Excuse me. I'm going to start another one. Coffee. Cheers. Okay. So let's start another one. This time I'm going to be working with a stone. This is a forest agate or moss agate, whichever you like to call it. And it's kind of a greenish blue gray in color. So it's definitely a nice stone. I like the tones of it. It's round, so that's going to be a little difficult to work with, which is good for me because it's a challenge. So I'm just going to cut off some pieces of 18 gauge copper wire again. And I do use other wire. I don't just use copper. I use sterling silver. I also use some colored wire, which is a colored copper. So you can use whatever you like as well. It's just when you're starting out, as I always tell people, don't buy the most expensive wire you get your hands on. Order something from Amazon that's relatively inexpensive. Just don't order an aluminum core or base wire. They usually don't last and they rust. At least in my experience, they have. So I'm just going to cut 4 pieces. Because I want to really get the width of the stone captured in my weave. It's going to flatten these out so they're side by side, just to start off with. And you can see how thick that is against the stone. So this is going to be going around the stone. And I'm going to be working it from 2 different points. Actually, I need a smaller wire. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to be using, like I did before, the 30 gauge because it's so small. But it's also, for me, easier to work with. A lot of people like it. Some people don't, for the simple fact that it's like a thread. If you can look at these 2 wires together, of course, the gauge is based on the number, and the thicker one is an 18, the thinner one is a 30. So the higher the number, the smaller the thread of wire that you have. And again, basing this as the 24, you can see the difference between all 3. But I like the 30 or 28 normally. So I'm just going to take my 30 gauge wire and find the midpoint. And I'm going to wrap this twice. Three times. So my left hand side, I'm just going to pull that out so it doesn't get in the way for right now. And I'm going to move this over because it's not properly centered. There we go. Okay, so this particular wire, what I'm going to do is a pyramid type of wrap, and you've probably seen someone else do this before. So this could be 3 times, and again, I always use the number 3. I'm not sure exactly why. I just simply like the number 3. When it comes to wrapping, I feel that my wires are actually secured. Okay, so I've got 2 wires with 3 coils going around them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the first and second wire. I'm going to wrap wires number 2 and 3. 3 times. Okay. And then you may figure out what's coming up next. I'm going to take my 4th wire. And I'm going to add that into the mix. Trying to keep all the wires even in the middle. I'm going to go between 2 and 3. And I'm going to wrap around 3 and 4. 3 times. Okay. So you can start to see how that's coming out just a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I have a choice. I can go all the way to the starting point and start over, which gives me kind of a diagonal line design, or I can go back down, which will just give me a zigzag, or I always call it the pyramid because it looks like a pyramid when it's finished. So I think I'm going to go with the diagonal line this time. So we're going to go all the way back down to the beginning. And I'm just going to do wires number 1 and 2. 3 times. Okay. And at this point, you want to be careful not to push it over too closely to your previous row. Otherwise, you end up with something very flat looking. It doesn't have a lot of detail to it. So we're doing wires 2 and 3, just like before. Okay. And then we're going to go in between 2 and 3 from the bottom. And we're going to wrap 3 and 4. There we go. So we're going to continue this process. Now this is making an actual pendant. This just isn't a weave that I'm doing for demonstration. And my light just went out. This battery already died. Yes, it is. Pardon me for a second. There we go. Let there be light. Okay. And continuing where we left off, that was 1 and 2 again. And go between 1 and 2. So you just have to remember whatever level you're on. When you finish it, you want to go in between the 2. Like so. Alright, so now we're going to do 3 and 4. Make sure it's flat and everything lines up next to each other. Now, I know that I talked about half round and square wire. Well, I have some square sterling silver on hand, but I don't have any half round. So I'm actually going to be making an attempt again with the square and half round, even though I've kind of put off using them in the past. Simply because sometimes square wire can be a pain to use depending on what you're actually using it for. And again, that's to me, that's just personal preference. That's not something that you have to follow. It's not a rule. It's just a personal preference. And the reason why people like using it is because it lays very flat. Because you have a flat style wire that works with the surface that you're using. Instead of a round wire, which the round wire, unfortunately, can get a little mangled. It can get a little messy, per se. But I am using round wire as we speak. I'm not using a square or half round. But again, I do have it on order, so I will do some more demonstrations with the half round and square wire in the near future. Alrighty, so I'm just working with these like I normally do. Alright, between 2 and 3 to catch 3 and 4. Go. Okay. So let me flatten this out. Give you another glimpse of what it actually looks like. So it's very pretty. It's just pretty much a zigzag line. Do you see that some of these need to be pushed together? So we're just going to fix those. There we go. Okay. Now I still have this other side that I have to do. And again, the reason why I usually don't use 30 is because the wrap is so detailed and it takes so long to complete because the wire is so fine. But to me, I like the detail of it. When people look at it, they're like, oh, that's really pretty. And then they look at it up even closer and they're like, oh my goodness, there's such minimal and at the same time intricate detail to your wrapping. Yes, that's true. And when I first started, I used to use a larger wire all the time. I used to use, I believe it was a 22 gauge on everything. And I realized as I was moving along with my practice of doing weaves and making jewelry is unfortunately it doesn't work for everything. Now, mind you, people were very nice and gave me good feedback based on my work, but to me, I needed to do something extra. So that's how I started working with the finer wires and come to actually appreciate it a lot more. So you may find that within your own wire wrapping journey that you really appreciate something that you never expected to actually like. Okay, let's look at our stone for a second. Okay, let's do one more set. I'm gauging how the actual stone is going to appear once I wrap the wires around it. And that way I don't have to keep guessing myself as far as the length is concerned of my weave. Okay, so I'm going to stop on this side and I'm going to turn this around. Now, in order to create the same pattern, I have to do the same, again, pattern, but in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit. And you can always tell, or I can always tell where I started because there's a single wrap around a single wire. So that helps me tremendously in making the decision of where my actual centering is from the weave that I just created. So it helps tremendously. All right, so we were going over, now we're going to go under. So we're going to go under, same thing. Okay, and then we're going to go through 3 and 4 and over 2 and 3. So we're doing the exact opposite. But I'm also doing this so the pattern appears the same on both sides. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Because the center now actually becomes a point. Now we go back down to the first one. Okay. Okay, I'm about down to the first. Actually, I just realized I reversed my weave by accident, which is okay. So now I'm actually going over. That can happen. Once you start doing a weave a certain way, and if you reverse it, you can get a little kerbobbled, if you would. So I went and reversed my weave, not intentionally. And as you can see also, I'm not having any cramping in my hand. I'm not pulling as much as what I need to or needed to on the other wrap with a thicker wire. Okay. Beginning, how many sets did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So I'm on wrap number 4. And I'm trying not to pull the wires too far apart, so I can have a consistent looking wrap. And that was 5, and around number 6. And when you're doing a full pendant wrap like this, it can take a while, especially when you're using a very thin wire. So keep that in mind too. Once you're starting off, you need a lot of patience when it comes to doing wire wrap work. Especially when you're making designs that you're selling. All right, we're number under 7. Oops, I messed up. And this is one of the reasons why I do this live, is so you can see when I do something wrong. It helps for people to realize that no matter who you are, something can still go wrong no matter how long you've been working on your practice. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm on number 8. want to make sure I am in line with everything. Oops. What did I do? Separate those a little bit. Okay, that happened again. Good lord. Again, these smaller weaves or smaller wires, they're going to trip you up. I unfortunately went all the way to the top of that one. Go. And I apologize if I ever go off camera. It's not my intention. It's just very difficult to hold your hands in the same spot when you're doing something like this. Try it. You'll see what I mean. 2, 3, and we're on number 9, finally. Okay, last one. Make it count. Okay, last one. Okay, so now we have 10 on both sides. And as I was trying to mention earlier, you could see where the middle is because it created that pyramid shape. And again, you can do the pyramid all the way through, or Aztec weave. I don't know what they call it specifically. I haven't read any books. I'm going to straighten this out, and then you want to measure it against your stone. So starting in the center, just going to roll the stone. Oh, that's more than enough. Okay, good. All right, so what we're going to do is bend this just so slightly so it matches the stone. Okay. And I always leave myself a little leeway at the top if I want to do some weaving or adding some intricate detail. Blah, 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 can't talk this morning. For my stone thereafter. So just pull that in and then take your stone out so you have what I call a cage around it. Put it back in for a second. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to create a bail. Now, bail is relatively easy because you could use a little or as many wires as you want to. So if I want to take some of these wires out and use it for detail instead of including in the bail, I can. Let's get started with that. So what I'm going to do is take this wire and pull it across this way in front just a couple times. I'm going to take the second wire and I'm going to do the same. And they're probably going to cross, which is fine. Okay. So now I have 2 wires. I want to take the longer of the 2, which would be this one. And I'm just going to take the shorter one and wrap it inward a few times. And no, I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to leave it in case if I want to do something with it. Meantime, I'm going to take the longer wire, pull that one up, okay, to use it to make my bail. Now, with the bail, you could do several different things depending on what you want to actually physically do. And here's the keynote to doing a bail properly, in my eyes, is you have several different base wires that you can pick from. If you pick the 2 in the front, you'll have a more seamless looking bail. Okay. If you pick the 2 in the back, then you're going to have a more intricate look. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the 2 middle wires and I'm going to pull those out of the equation completely. And I'm going to pull the outermost 2 wires in like this. Okay. And I'm hoping that I have enough wire to do this. All right, so we're going to take our bail wire. I'm going to wrap it around. Let's do 2 times. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. This is that figure 8 that I was doing before. Now, when you do the figure 8 on a bail, especially since I have the wires not so close together, they're going to start separating and creating a design within the bail. And I knew this was going to happen. I ran out of wire. Or I'm running out of wire. Okay. So let's do this. Let's do a hack. I'm going to take this little wire and cut it off. Okay, I still have the other wire intact down here, but I want to keep that just in case. So I'm going to take some more 30 gauge wire. Cut a piece off. And being that I ended my wrap on this side, I'll go ahead and start a new wire with a tail on this side. Okay, but I'm going to wrap it 3 times. Now, since this wire is so thin, 9 out of 10 times it's not going to show up in the design. I'm just going to keep going. I just pricked myself with the 30 gauge wire. So I'm going to be bleeding here in a second. Or not, thank goodness. Ah. Okay. I'm gonna push all this down. Now I'm gonna start making a change on the wires. I want the wires to come back together. So I'm gonna take these wires, make sure they're still flat. I'm gonna point them in towards each other. Kind of creates a diamond pattern. And this is where it gets tricky because these are gonna slip and slide all over the place. So I'm gonna do 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. 2 on the bottom. 2 on the top. And I'm still following that pattern of the figure 8. And a lot of people will look at this and go, that's really messy. That's not even pretty at all. Well, wait till I'm done. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we have the wires almost meeting. So I'm just going to pull them back into their straight form. Okay. So I have this messy looking figure 8 thing going on. So what I'm going to do in order to make this really pretty, and this comes to a shock to a lot of people, is I'm going to create my bail. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to pull it forward, I'm going to bend it backwards. I normally do, and watch what happens to the bail. It becomes nice. It becomes an actual leaf looking bail, almost like a heart shape. Okay, so that's how you can create something that doesn't look so ordinary at first, but after you complete your design, you'll have a sense of accomplishment because it does look very pretty. Very, very pretty. So this is the other wire, which is now tangled. Yay. Okay. What I'm going to do is take the wire that I have here. I'm going to wrap it a few times. I keep hitting the camera. I apologize. Just to secure that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that loose and take that itty bitty tiny little 30 gauge wire and tuck that in place so nobody gets stuck with the wire itself. Now, I have all these little extra wires hanging out in the back. That's a good thing. And the reason being is because I'm going to go ahead and use these wires in other ways. Okay. So let's take these 2 wires from one side. We're going to pull it through. And you want to try to keep the shape that you have for your stone setting as much as possible. You don't want to damage that. So we're going to pull this over the top. And I'm going to do the same with the other 2 pieces of wire for the other side. Like so. And that one actually laid pretty flat. I'm really surprised. This one, on the other hand, is a little bit of a mess. And it's because they're crossed. There we go. That's better. Okay, so now I have these wires sitting supposed to be. I'm going to take this and I'm going to flatten it against where the stone's going to go. And this is the reason why I left a little space up here, so I can do some more things that still fit the stone the way it's supposed to be. Okay, now I have options. I can cut these off, or I could use them for more intricate detail. Considering my stone is not that big, the moss agate, what I'm going to do, and I have 4 other wires to work with, is I'm going to go ahead and cut these off. I wasn't going to, but I decided I'm going to because I have 2 more wires that I'm working with, because I started with 4 full wires. Let's cut those off. Let's out a bit, cut these off. There we go. Okay, and I don't know if I ever explained this. The reason why I like using copper so much is the versatility of not only the way copper bends in its raw form, but also you can create a piece that looks aged. So it tends to look more beautiful in my eyes. Even if you don't age it immediately with chemicals, it'll age over time. But you can also polish it very simply if you don't appreciate the aged effect, which some people don't. Okay, so I've got this all squared away. Almost all squared away. There we go. Okay, so now that's inside and there is no nicking of the wire, or so I may think. Okay, good. Okay, so now I have to set my stone in permanently. So what I'm going to do is put my stone in, and it could still fall out from either side because I haven't secured it from either side yet. So what I'm going to do is take these 2 wires and create a drape. Just right around the stone. Like so. Let the stone fall out. And I'm going to cut these short also. And I'm also going to turn these inward towards the setting. We'll lay these flat against the actual setting, and as you can see, there is some sticking out. Carefully cut those off because they're tiny, tiny pieces. You don't want them flying and hitting you in the eye, or if you have pets like I do, you don't want them eating it off the floor. That would be just tragic. Okay, so there we have a swirl, or I call it a curtain or a drape. Start off with on one side. Okay, that's going to hold your stone in a little more securely. Now, I'm not done with this. What I'm going to do is create a pattern with another piece of wire. So let me find my 30 gauge wire. There we go. So just shake it a little bit so you can find the ending. I'm just going to pull this off. Okay. So we have this ribbon, and I don't know if I'm going to do the whole thing. Sometimes I like a little bit of variation in my designs. So let's do it this way. I'm going to do this on the bottom portion. So let's take this piece. I'm going to pull that tight. Okay. And I'm going to go all the way around. Where the stone is going to be set. Okay, and I'm going to do it one more time. Just pop that through. Okay. So that gives me what appears to be 3 wires hanging over the side, which is perfect. Now I'm going to go underneath, holding in place this piece, and pull it through just underneath the curtain, not the whole thing. I'm going to make sure that fits nice and snug with each other. Okay. So now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take it. It looks like a 4th ring over here. And go through. And the reason why I went through the curtain just one time is because it's going to hold that curtain in place right where I'm putting this design. So I'm just feeding this through. Okay. Make sure all of my wires for this 30 gauge itty bitty tiny little thread wire stays flat. Now I can keep going if I want to, or I can stop. So I'm going to go underneath the curtain just one more time. Okay. We'll do that one more. Okay. I'm going to push these together. Okay, I'm actually going to stop this design right here. Now you can repeat this at different places across the bottom, but I don't think I'm going to. And I'm just going to cut this off while I have it on the inside, like so. So I'm going to move this over, match the others, make sure that little piece that I just cut off is in there securely. So it doesn't stick the person that's going to be wearing the pendant. There we go. And then this piece, which is the one I started off with, going to pull that around, tuck it in, and clip that off. There we go. That's a little piece. Okay. So now I have a side that is secured onto one side of my pendant. Okay. And this can still move. So what I'm gonna do, I decided I'm gonna keep this and make it dual-sided. So it'll be worth even more. So I'm gonna take this little wire that's left over. I'm gonna wrap it around a few times. Push it up to make it look like it's coming out of the top. Using a very long piece of wire. The other one, so I'm probably gonna end up using that one too. Now there is an actual device you can buy that I purchased at Michael's that will wind up a piece of wire for you. You could do a wraparound like this. It fell out, which is fine. Okay. I'm gonna take this, and since I ended it, it has a little bit more of an intricate looking piece compared to the one that's plain. That's kind of what I wanted because this is dual sided. So let's put our stone back in. Okay. And on this side, I'm gonna attempt the same thing. But I'm gonna come in a little bit closer to the stone center and away from the side. So once I hit the bottom here, I'll take another piece of my 30 gauge wire and I'm going to start another wrap down here. Now this is going to become a little bit more difficult, and the reason being is because I have to go through a space that really doesn't exist with a very thin wire. And this piece is not cooperating, it's too mangled, so let's cut that off. And try it again. There we go. Okay, so now when you're doing something like this and you have all these wires all bunched up and it looks like a mess, put your thumb in front of where the wire is going to go into and pull. And that's going to keep the wire flat. Supposedly. Until it decides to get tangled on something else. Like it just did. That did not work. All right. I'm going to pull that out. That did not work. I used it. It was too long. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, let's pull that off and start again. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go. I wrapped that 4 times. I'm going to go a different route with this. I'm wrapping the bottom wire 4 times, followed by wrapping the 2 wires together 4 times. So I'm making a little bit of a pattern instead of just looping it in. Okay. So now on the 4th interval, which I've already passed, pull this tail out. Now, this is the 4th interval, so I'm going to go through the pendant again. Mm. Hmm. All right, I'm just going to go through, take this down out and go through. Because the 30 gauge wire is so fragile and tiny. And that's what I meant about my thumb before. Go all the way through. Like so. There we go. Okay, so now I can go back. My first one. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm just creating a point where the wires would become secure against the pendant. Okay, so now that I have that done, I'm going to push this back in. Okay. Phew. In the meantime, let me cut this one off. Again, I like doing these live so you can see struggles that I actually have. Okay, so that looks good. I apologize if I was out of the frame. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and make this side a little bit more intricate. I'm going to take this wire and put it through that original space. And I'm going to wrap it around that we created. We first started this side. And then this side, I'm going to take it and I'm going to make a spiral. Okay, now this spiral, I'm going to use the 30 gauge wire to complete it. So it looks a little bit more intricate than just your everyday average spiral. like so. I'm going to cut this off. Still have a lot of wire I could save to use it for something else. I'm going to gently push that into place. Okay, so this is our pendant. Now, again, I started off today and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and make some more endings. But no, I wanted to do a whole pendant today. So this is a dual side mass agate, or what is also known as a sorry, I'm getting lost track here. It's a moss agate, or what's also called a forest floor agate. Okay. Now, again, the stone doesn't move. It's secured on both sides. As a matter of fact, let me just make sure. And I'm just pressing on that piece. There we go. I just want to make sure. Okay, so it's a dual side moss agate pendant made of rock copper. Okay, and you could wear it on one side with a swirl, or you can wear it on the other side if you want to show more of the stone. It's entirely up to you. But this is it for today. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I'll probably do another one of these soon. I really enjoy doing them. And I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.